welcome to Life Change Transformation. We are going to talk about something that's really cool today. It's your surprise tool for transformation. We're going to get into that. Of course, I'm here with Maeve Langford. Maeve Langford, all the way from Cork, Ireland, transformational life coach. She's really truthfully blazing that trail and changing so many lives. And it's amazing to be here with her. She's a wealth of information and knowledge as well. It's great to have a co-host that is so knowledgeable, and I love spending time with her this way. It's great to be able to do this.
Thank you,
Of course,
Gary.
myself, my name is Gary Benoit. I'm in Edmonton, Alberta right now, and I'm a retired police officer. I spent 25 years doing that, and I've authored a book called A Call for Service, and really a student of this particular study of transformation. So it's really great to be here. And this surprise tool, we've talked about this tool before. But truthfully, what it is it's a structure, right? It's that structure, right? Being a calendar.
Absolutely. A structure for transformation, right?
Hmm. So tell me a
Yeah.
little more about that structure. Why is the structure so important?
Well, for me, it just keeps coming back to everything is energy, right? Every thought, every feeling, every action we take, everything that feels tangible, the cup or the mug or whatever, it's all energy, right? And energy needs structure. It needs a structure to flow through. And oftentimes, when we're not kind of seeing the results that we would love in our lives, it's because that structure isn't there, whether that's in terms of how we manage our finances or, structure for getting fit and healthy and, going to the gym or whatever. And it's the same with how we manage our time. And again, time in service of results that we would love, right? So
Hmm.
we want to create transformation in our lives. We've been talking this month already about being intentional about what we want to create in 2025. And all that intention is energy, right? And that energy needs a structure to flow more easily into our lives. And our calendar, or our diary as we
Hmm.
might more often call it here in Ireland, our diary is a structure that allows the energy to flow with more ease and grace. And I think sometimes, like when we think about, sometimes in our work here together, Gary, we talk about how everything is created twice, right?
Right.
First, it's an idea, and then it comes into kind of a tangible lived experience. It comes into form. So, one of the first ways, one of my great mentors, Mary Morrissey, used to say this, one of the first ways that we take something from idea into form is to write it down. So we write our vision, right? That we,
Hmm.
again, for all of you listening today, you're used to that idea. We need to write our vision, and using our diary or our calendar to write our goals or express our goals in terms of how we're using our time is another great way to bring that vision from idea into form. So I can see my own wall planner here in the background. We can have
Yeah.
a year long wall planner and a vision. So we have a vision for our year. And, if I have the results that I would love by December 2025, there's going to be certain things I might anticipate will be in place by January or by June or by, the end of August, whatever it is. So again, I think one of the things that's really cool about the way you and I approach this and how our mentors teach us in how to approach all of this is that when you're planning your year, you plan it like you'd love it, right? It took me years to kind of get this. So
Hmm.
again, if you're listening, this is gold dust, right?
Hmm.
You create your year in your mind and in your diary as you would love it to be, not based on last year or what you think is possible, but like this is the year of life I would love. And then you start to populate your wall planner or your
Hmm.
diary and you start to write in, this is what I'm doing,
Hmm.
this is the progress, these are the actions I'm taking, and you start to give it shape and you put a structure around that vision.
Right. And the reason why we say it's kind of a surprise tool, people don't see, like in societies in general, we always like we've said this before in other ones, and we're going to just really hammer down on the diary, the calendar. It's for us it's interchangeable because two different places in the world. I have ours is right here as well. I can look over, I can see what I've written down for this entire year, and I have all the things that I put in here. I've got speaking dates put in here. I haven't booked anything yet on some of those dates, right? Those dates aren't booked. It's
Oh,
just there. I would love to see something there. I think the thing about the calendar sometimes is that we tend to go to the calendar to see what's possible, right? So looking to your conditions and your circumstances to see what's possible. But we're trying to live, the idea of this transformation is to live differently, right? To live from the vision, from what would you love in your life? How would you love to see this happen? I think then the calendar is such a key piece of that, or the diary, or the that planner you're going to have, is because if you don't fill it, we talked about intention last time, right? And we talked about being intentional and intentionally filling your calendar with all the things that you would love to do for this year to reach you to that next level or whatever that vision is for you is such an important piece. Because if
yeah.
you don't fill it intentionally, it's going to get filled anyway,
Yeah. So
right?
this is reminding me, I remember having a conversation with my boss, like way back when I was still working in one of the universities locally here. And we talked about how we kind of look at our diaries. You arrive into work on Monday and you look at your diary to tell you what to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've got, meetings are scheduled, you've got commitments that maybe other people have put in your diary for you. And our diary is running us, right? And then, an event comes up or an invitation comes up and we look to our diaries and to ask, is that possible? And what you and I are talking about here is that we just kind of scrap that approach and
Mm-hmm.
we take control of our diaries again. We decide individually, each of us decides, okay, this is how I'm going to spend my time. These are the things I want to give
Right.
commitment to and energy to. And when those calls come in to, will you do this? Can you do that? Can you meet this deadline? We look at our diary and decide if we can or not. And it's
Mm.
not the other way around.
Right.
And this
And
might sound really counterintuitive for many of you listening today.
and you say that, I was just going to say that I spent 25 years policing. Okay? I was a cop for 25 years. Um, you have to understand that in the police department and any kind of first responder kind of world, you're very structured, right? They dictate everything that we do, essentially, right? Policing,
Sure.
I I knew my schedule ahead of time. I knew what days I was supposed to be at work. And when I was in that position, when I was at my work, I was bound by the calls on the board and the patrol schedule and the everything that the staff sergeant wanted and all the inspectors, when stuff came down from them, they would dictate essentially how I would be doing my day. So when
Yeah.
I first heard this concept, I too was like, this is doesn't make sense in my head because I had 25 years or whatever it was, 20 years at the time of training my brain the other way.
Yeah.
Right. And so it was such an easy thing to look at I don't have time. Sorry, I can't do that because my calendar's full. Well, I didn't plan that calendar. It was full for me, right? It was stuffed for me. I would love to go do something like whatever that event might be or whatever that might be, uh, but I couldn't do it because it was already full, right? So like it's taken a while for me as well to understand the concept. Like it's one of the habits I used to have up until this point was I would do the calendar and I would stick it in a drawer.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm like, well, that's no good to me. Right. I realize now it was no good to me. Um, because it was a concept I was trying to repattern. I was trying to repattern. I was trying to transform the thoughts around how that looks, right? And how the
Yes.
right. So it's not going to, once again, you guys, this is not an overnight process. That's why I say it's why I call myself a student of transformation. Um, as Maeve too is a student of transformation, and we're all each on our own individual journeys. This is a constant learning all the time, and I think the
Yeah.
calendar has become such an important piece of it for me, and it took me a little while to get to this point where I can see how important it really is, because
Yeah.
it truly is one of the best tools to really gauge and really turn up the dial on your vision. And because it's taken me a while to get to where I'm at, like it because it's been a process. I literally for the first little while would go into the drawer and I wouldn't even see it till the next year, right? Sometimes I would, oh, Oh, I did this last year. Oh, geez. And then I would be surprised about how much stuff I did get done, but I wasn't satisfied with the stuff I hadn't got done, right? Because I
Yeah.
realized that I could be so much better, right? And I just, sticking it in the drawer doesn't help,
No,
right?
no. So we
Yes,
want it visible,
you need
like
to see it.
here for a wall planner, like if you've got a diary, it's on your desk, you're using it every day, every other day.
Yeah.
But like for those of you listening who like this is just completely new and sounds maybe a bit nuts. And I mean, I was excited with Gary. I said we should talk calendars
Yeah.
early in January, right?
Mhm.
Because you can get ahead of it then for the year. But I would say, and again, my mentor Mary Morrissey, the first time I heard her speak about calendars, she said that the first things that go in my calendar, my diary, are family birthdays, family events, holidays, all those kind of important personal events. And I was like, but I was like, isn't your diary for work? And no, it's your life, right? We have a vision for our life. Your diary, you want it to reflect your life. So for any of you coming new to this or, being reminded of this for the first time, I would say start now, like populate your calendar and your diary with all the family events, all the holidays, all the birthdays that you want to give time and energy to this year. And number two, I would say populate in there your personal goals and your professional goals, right? So maybe there's a course you want to take, or maybe there's, you like us, you have a weekly call. Maybe you want to put in our podcast. You want to make sure you give dedicated time to that. There might be books you want to read. When are you going to read them? Is that an evening activity, a weekend activity, a part of your workday activity? Put it in there.
Mhm.
And if Gary and I were to turn up in your home tomorrow and we looked at your diary, this is a test for yourself. Would we know what your intention and goals were for 2025 by looking at your diary?
Mhm.
So again, like for me last year, when I wanted to do two K swims. So the previous year I'd gotten fit enough to do it, but I never got to do an organized event. The one I was signed up for was cancelled. So I wanted 2024, two events. That was my goal. So the events went in the diary first, so two events in June, and then backed up from that. If I was going to do those in June, then from kind of March onwards, I needed to be getting in the sea at least once a weekend, and I need to be getting in the pool at least once a week. And I can tell you, the weeks that was in my diary, it happened. And the weeks I forgot to commit the time and decide in advance where that time was going to be found, those swims often didn't happen.
Mhm.
And that's the power of it. When it's in the diary, you're way more likely to commit to it. And if somebody rings up and, if I have a swim in Tuesday night at 7 o'clock, if someone rings up and says, will you come to a movie, or, can you record a podcast, or, can we do X or Y? And I'm like, no, sorry, I have a commitment.
Mhm.
Even if it's to myself, right? I
Mhm.
have a commitment.
Mhm.
And we'll find another time,
Right.
right?
I mean, we're gonna talk a little more here as we get into this podcast a little bit about the how to. This is the how to use your calendar, right?
Yes.
This is like the kind of like the very like step by step things you could do with your diary, your calendar to really make it work. You said it brilliantly. I put the swims in my calendar, and that's my commitment to myself, and that's what I'm doing. It's there now. I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
Same thing with us. We put in like our my workout times is in the calendar first. My date nights are in the calendar first.
Yeah.
Um, the golf games with my son, I've put in the calendar already. I have no idea, I'm looking ahead and saying I'm going to golf these days, and I put them in the calendar, you know, because that's important time for us, for me, right? I think, and we're talking about a holistic approach, right? So like, of course, there still needs to be your personal, you can fill your calendar with all your personal stuff for sure and not do any business stuff. You could if you wanted to, if you were independently wealthy, by all means. However, that being said, if there's, it's about approaching it from all those four quadrants, right? It's your time, money, freedom.
Yes.
It's your career, your vocation. It's your relationships, if it's friends, it's family, right, and your health, right? And I think it's important to know that these things are all important, and so we may focus a little heavier on one quadrant, but the rest of them still need to have at least some sort of touchstone as well, right?
And some time dedicated
Dedicated.
for those purposes.
Yeah,
And again, this I think again just to remind ourselves and all of you listening today that like one of the ways we kind of set ourselves up to fail is that we fill the diary with work stuff and then we expect that we're going to have time for family events,
you're
for
right.
personal development, for swims or I don't know, diet classes or like dance classes. It doesn't matter, gardening, golfing. But again, like set yourself up for success. If you know you want time for some of those things, give it the time, use the structure, anticipate how much you want to do it and give the time allocation to it. And then you get a lot. I think two things happen. I think you get a lot stricter about not wasting time. And I suppose the corollary of that is that you get way more focused on the time you do have to deliver on the work projects or any other commitments you might have, and you
Right,
get them done because you have these other things you want to get done as
right.
well. So you're way more effective with the time you do have.
So let me ask a question that's gonna, because I've had this question come to me a few times from other people. It's like, well, what if there's like a conflict? What if there's like something that's more important or something that shows up and you have a previous event that was already scheduled? What's the strategy around those conflicts that when you realize, oh, like, because there's times when I've got something in the calendar and then an events come up that would further my business. And so I've rearranged my calendar, right? So
Yeah.
what's the strategy? I mean, I know I'm trying to get a certain answer out of you here, but because we talked about it
Okay,
prior.
well, I don't know what answer you're looking for, but I'll tell you what comes up in me and what my practice would be, right? And you might have other ways of approaching it as well. But I think I mean, it's okay to change things, right? Our
Absolutely.
diaries are not carved in stone. Okay, so
Yes.
again, let that be
Love that.
a principle that for all of us to hear today. So I think one of the things would be if I'm taking something out that I did previously have a commitment to and thought was important for that time. If I'm going to move that, I'm not just taking it out from the 2nd of January, but I'm automatically saying, okay, I'm taking it out of here and I'm putting it in
Mm.
here instead if
That's
it's
what I
still
wanted right there.
important.
That's what I wanted.
Yeah.
Nice.
So yes, I'm willing to move things. And it might be more time urgent. It might be a brilliant opportunity that has cropped up. It might be something personal that I need to do. Yes, absolutely. We can move things around,
Yes,
but
I love that.
we make that new slot. Everything has its home. The other thing I would add to that though, Gary, is that if it's the same thing that I'm moving all the time, right? And again, you won't notice that unless you're paying attention. But what I would say, I call it kind of the three strikes, right?
Yeah,
You
perfect.
you can move something three times,
Yeah,
and after that, as our coach says, barring accident and emergency, it happens.
yeah,
Because after the third move, this is not opportunity or other stuff that's coming up. This is the paradigm
right.
that's keeping you stuck.
Yeah, yeah. That's exactly what I was looking for. The whole three strikes thing. I think that's such a, you mentioned that in our, our preparation for this episode. And I love the three strikes analogy because it makes so much sense in my mind. The idea that, and I agree that if you start to move the same thing multiple times, it is the paradigm speaking to you. Like if you're more than three times, it's not just things coming up in that moment to
No.
better yourself. That's the paradigm saying, no, we're going to push that off, push that. That's the delay paradigm
Yeah.
coming up and just we're going to delay that and delay that and delay that because that's the step we have to take.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's really, really, really cool because, we, once again, we put things down on like it's written with a erasable marker. My count,
Mhm.
these ones on the wall, they're
Yeah, mine
erasable,
too. Yeah.
right? And the reason is because we can be flexible in it. We can hold it with an open hand, right?
Yeah.
Oftentimes we get so focused, right? Like we clench things so tightly because that's how we see it in our minds, and it has to work just this one way.
Yeah.
But that's not how it works, right? It works its way. And it
Yeah.
and that idea of energy and our vision working its way is not this. It's not that real hard fist, closed hand, gripping it so tightly that you're white knuckling your vision. It's the other way. It's like open hand, very, very, very free and flexible. And because ultimately we don't know how it's going to work because the how is
Exactly.
it's none of our
Yeah.
business, right? So ultimately it's going to come how it's going to come. And we just had to be open to receiving it when it comes the way it comes.
Yeah. And we have to care enough to give it an initial form of like
Right.
I think this is what it would look like. This is my best version of it.
Mhm.
But yeah, like spirit, God, life, the universe can bring things to us in ways that we can't even imagine,
Right.
right? And we've all had these experiences where you think, "Oh, I'd love X or Y to happen," and it doesn't happen the way we think it will, but the outcome comes to us in a different way, and
Right.
it's way cooler often.
Right. So have you ever seen the game show? It reminds me, have you seen the game show The Price is Right?
No, I don't think so.
No, is that something you guys over there? So The Price is Right
I don't
is
know if we have it or not, but I haven't seen it if we
it's
do.
a United States game show, and it's got a game called Plinko. No, and so Plinko is this board with all these little pegs on it, and at the very bottom are like different money amounts. It's a game show, right? They're trying to get money. But the way I see this is that it's your vision and the universe works very much like a Plinko board. You stand at the
Okay.
top and you've planned out and you see the goal at the end, right? This bucket you want to put your little chip into, and you throw it into the Plinko board in the game into the game, right? You're playing the game, you're playing your life, you're doing your life, and now it bounces all over the place. It bounces up and down and around, and it kind of goes from one side all the way back to the other side, and then it drops into the bucket that it's gonna receive in,
Okay.
right? And so I think that's much like our, we linearize this stuff. We put stuff in a line and we think it's gonna happen this way, but ultimately we do know that as you structure, like your calendar is just that, it's that structure, it's that Plinko board. It's very open. The Plinko board has no sides, no ends, right? It's all open top and bottom and side, left and right. And your vision's gonna filter through that in whatever way it decides to. As long as you've given it a structure to run through, you're still going to
Yes.
receive a result at the end of it. But if you didn't give it that structure, where's it going to go?
Well, then there's it's just
There's
going to
nothing.
go probably round in
Right,
circles, I would
right. So there's
say.
nothing, right? And
Yeah.
so ultimately by giving it that structure, you've given it that opportunity to show up to you and however you want to be. And that's how I see it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And,
Yeah.
and maybe that analogy doesn't make sense for my European friends over there, but if you ever look
No,
it
well,
up,
I get it as you describe
yeah.
it for
So yeah.
sure.
So if
For
you
sure.
can always YouTube a Plinko game show out of The Price
Good
is Right, and
idea.
you can
I'll do
see it.
that. I'll do that.
It's an analogy. It's not maybe not the best analogy right now, but that's what came to my mind. So I spoke it.
Yeah. Great job. So listen, we're talking about this as a kind of how-to approach
Yeah.
in terms of how do you use your calendar, your diary as a transformational tool. So Gary, we've talked about having a year planner,
Hmm.
and we've talked about like having your desk diary that maybe is daily or weekly. So
Hmm.
like are there any other stages you'd speak to between the year planner and what I'm doing on a given day?
Yeah, for sure. Like when you look at the end of you look at your whole year, your whole vision, the idea, right? If I know that May I want to have a certain result by May, it's like 'cause you have guideposts along the way, right? You have your markers that tell you if you're on track or not. And
Yeah.
if I have a marker in May and I'm in January and I know that I want to have 4 speaking engagements booked by May and I haven't made a phone call yet in January, well, I better write things down. I better have
Yeah.
my daily and my weekly tasks are to research, make phone calls, send emails, right? And it needs to be a certain number of emails, a certain number of whatever
Yeah.
feels good, right? In that way. And so ultimately, I think it's really, really important when you're utilizing your diary, your calendar, your weekly tasks should be written out as well. Like yesterday, Colette and I sat down and we went through our first week of January. What does it look like? Who do we have to reach out to? Like we've started to plan that already. So already for like next week, we've already got a daily or an idea what it's going to look like for the week. And so then
Yeah.
in that week, we have to get these 25 tasks done. Well, I'm not going to get them all done on the first day.
Exactly.
right? Monday is going to come. I'm not going to get them all done Monday morning. It's not going to happen all in one day. That's okay. I will spread those out throughout the week. And by the Friday, I'll have those. So it's
Exactly.
five tasks a day, roughly speaking, let's say, right? Depending on
Yeah.
how things are going. Because I still want to do my workouts. I still want to do, so all that stuff's still important, right? So
And in
that,
the diary.
and in the diary, right? And so ultimately, those things happen. See, I know that and I wouldn't take more than that. Let's say I wouldn't necessarily go, I'm going to do 40 tasks next week. Well, that doesn't make any sense. You're not going to do it all in one time,
Yeah.
right? You need to have a bit of patience around that stuff. You need to almost like be mindful about uh, pacing yourself, kind of like
Yeah.
don't rush. Because once again, made an analogy. I'm not going to lose all my weight in the first month of the year,
Exactly.
right? If
Exactly.
I'm working out, I have a weight goal. I'm not going to lose it all in one month. I'm going to lose a little bit, and so celebrate the ones that I'm going to do, and have the goals set up separate. So your daily goals should be really like mindful, but still with all that in mind. By May, I love to have this done. So how to do that is to make these 5 calls this week, right? Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Exactly. So, I mean, again, if I were to kind of chunk it down now, so you have your annual end of year results, your vision for 2025. So maybe, you have health goals, maybe you have relationship goals, maybe you have, impact goals in your business or your work. You want to generate X amount or you want to achieve a certain result in your time and money freedom. You might have income targets, you might have time off targets, right? So if I have an annual target, then quarterly, what would I be hoping? And again, it's not that it's, a quarter, a quarter, a quarter, a quarter. But in the first quarter, I want to get some traction. In the second quarter, maybe I'm maintaining progress. In the third quarter, I'm building up again. The final quarter might be like I'm going all out. I don't know what the spread will be for any of us, but
Right.
it's not necessarily that I'm dividing it into 12 equal amounts per month of the year or 4 equal quarters, but I have a sense of, well, if this is my end of year, say it's an income target, just because that's easy to talk about. If I want to generate, whether it's 50,000 or 100,000 or a million, it doesn't matter. But what do I expect I might do in the first quarter, the second, the third, and the fourth? And if I want those targets by the end of the first quarter, what does January look like? What does February look like? What does March look like? And then what if I break down January? Then what are my weekly actions and targets? And
Mhm.
again, my daily ones within each week. And that's, we chunk it down. And like folks, listen, I mean, if any of you knew me in my past life, right, you would say, I have never heard Mae Langford talking about goals and, quarterly targets and year end and all of that. I mean, that was not my lexicon. And if you said it to me, I was like, didn't want to know. But I know now that as a tool for transformation, building the vision, allocating it to a structure and breaking it down into manageable tasks that you can actually track and celebrate, I would say, is a big part of that, is how you bring it about. So it's not just, this is my vision and I hope it's going to happen.
Mhm.
It's like, this
Mhm.
is my vision and this is the action I can take.
Mhm.
And these are the times I can take it.
Yeah.
And
Uh,
just can I just speak very quickly to one
yeah.
thing within that, Gary, around the
Yeah.
time piece, right? So for
Yeah.
many of us, it might be that we want to claim back some time in our lives,
Sure.
right? That we work hard on our businesses, in our jobs, in our professional lives. I know for me, one of my big goals kind of just coming out of the COVID period, I was like, I wanted to keep building my business. I wanted to have the success and to continue to grow it, but I needed to claim back time. I was working all the hours that I felt were there. So sometimes our diary is about, really committing. If I'm not going to work in the evenings, if I'm not going to work in the weekends, it's not enough to just leave them blank. Right. I really learned this again from my coach that you have to allocate into that space. What are you going to be doing instead? So maybe it's health activities, maybe it's just watching TV, maybe it's meditation time, maybe it's, other things you want to do with family and friends. But you definitely want to write it in there because, in the absence of committing how you're going to use that time differently, the pull of the old habit
Mhm.
is so strong.
Mhm.
So, again, really, like if you're changing how you're using your time, again, maybe you want to meditate in the mornings or do a yoga class or get out for a walk or a run, write it in your diary. You want it to be in there.
Yeah,
Otherwise, you'll just stay in bed or
you're
maybe
right.
over breakfast or
Yeah,
whatever it is you normally do up
yeah,
until now.
for sure. And as we wind down this episode, it really it's not about longer, harder, faster, right? This isn't about that. Like
No,
we were talking about
no.
intentional filling of your time.
Yeah.
You've created a vision. You've created, you've given it a structure, right? Structures can come in many ways, whether that be a coaching structure, the calendar, the diary structure. You've given it this idea of being in the calendar, and you've filled your year out the way you would love it. You don't hold it, you don't grip it so tight. You're right. It's open with an open hand, and you plan your days and your weeks as you lead into the year, um, with you know with your vision, the end in mind, of course. It's not about being 100% quartered up, like you said, every quarter, right? Like, I mean, like ultimately, if you've made $0 right now and you started a brand new business, you're not going to make $250,000 by the end of the first quarter, potentially, right? You may not see your results until maybe the third quarter. And if you then average it, you might average out to that over the quarters, right? You have
Yeah.
to build up to the certain things. And then ultimately, to your calendar, this is the best way to use your calendar is really truly your diary is just to look at the days and just have your action steps laid out and don't bite off more than you can chew, right?
Mm.
In the first, because we get really excited in the beginning of the year, right?
Yeah.
And we have a lot of energy and we just want to just get at this. Then we think we can do all of this. And my arms are spread way wide out, you guys, way wide. All of this in the first couple of days of the year, first month of the year. But truthfully, we can't, right? It's
Mm.
about being honest with yourself and looking at it and say what's possible in this moment for today. Like what can I do today to move my
Yeah.
vision forward? And if it's these 5 steps, then celebrate those 5 steps, right? And then if it's tomorrow, you get more traction, maybe it's 10 steps tomorrow, right? And then you stay on 10 for maybe it's 10 for the whole month of January, let's say, maybe, right? Every day you do 10 things or whatever it looks like. So just be mindful, you guys. This structure will transform you. Um, I just, I love, I never used to love the calendar. My wife is I love her to death and she's so good at this part of it. And I'm striving to do better because it's taken me a little while to get out of my brain, my rewire those patterns I've for 25 years, and so I'm working on but I really start to really embrace the calendar. I really start to really love that idea of using the phone and having it all laid out there and during the day, and I love looking at it the night before to see what happens the next day that I've already planned, right? And I love that
Yeah.
part of it, and I just love the idea of just being super, super mindful when you're utilizing that structure. Like just say, hey, if I've taken stuff out, make sure I put something in there. If I've moved something, I'm not moving it more than 3 times. That's amazing. I think it's a great strategy. And if I'm moving it more than that, my awareness says, okay, that's a paradigm. What does that look like? And how do I repattern that paradigm? Right. So it gives you the awareness as well to change some patterns.
Yeah.
So I think it's great.
Yeah.
As we finish, what are your final thoughts?
Yeah, so actually, this was probably something it might have been helpful to say at the outset. Some people are going to be very resistant to this kind of structure. It sounds like you were. I definitely was in my past. And I really to invite all of you listening today to see that structure equals freedom. Okay. Sometimes we're afraid that if I've committed too much in my diary, I'm not leaving space open to be spontaneous or to be, I don't know, kind of to jump in and,
Mhm.
and, and say yes if something new and exciting comes up. I would say the more you manage your time and the more consciously aware you are of how you're using your time, the more spontaneous you can be and the more space you actually have within which you can be spontaneous. So that would be one thing I would say, that structure equals freedom. And the other thing I would say is about celebrating the progress you are making as you go through each day, each week, each month. There'll always be stuff we didn't get to. We tend to often overestimate how much we can get done in a day,
Mhm, mhm.
but we underestimate what we can do in a year, right? So we want to get better at learning that, but celebrate what you are doing, and really give yourself that dopamine hit. Well done me. I got this much done, or I've made this much progress. And the final thing I would just say is like those overall goals, and whatever was driving how you populated your year, in terms your goals for your health, your goals for your relationships, your work impact, your time and money freedom. Keep them where you can see them, right? Like literally on your calendar. Sometimes I have mine on a page that travels through my diary with me. So
Mhm.
in any given week, there's a piece that I just slot in that says these are the big goals here, right? This amount of fitness, this amount of income, this amount of clients served, this amount of um what was the other big thing? There I go. I can't think of it already today, but I have it written down. So you want to be able to tune to it all the time and
Yeah,
not forget those goals, because that's what's going to keep you, that focus on the goals, and the calendar is really just an opportunity for the focus. My other
absolutely.
big thing was the family holiday that we
Yeah,
want to
awesome.
create this year. So
That's amazing.
yeah,
Well, thanks you guys. Great. This has been a great episode. I think it's like for anybody that's really looking to transform their next year and really utilize a super cool structure, which is this. As we finish up here, our next episode, we're going to talk about managing energy. We're going to talk about overcoming kind of the January blues and what does it look like to really like be um, going into February in such a great energy state. So we're going to talk about that. And thanks again, guys. Always as a pleasure, Maeve, having you here together. This is amazing. I love this. I love our collaboration. I've said it before. I love our listeners. I love our people that have tuned in. If there's something about you want to hear from us, by all means, please connect with us, and we would love to have that ability to do that with you as well. It's been such a pleasure, and I even got a whole bunch out of this. I took a bunch of notes because I think this was some stuff that I'm going to take now, and I'm going to use for my
remind
calendar.
ourselves
Yeah,
of,
remind myself of
absolutely.
because like ultimately,
Yeah,
this is no, we're doing this together, you guys. This is not about us telling you or showing you. It's about just being just together. We're walking this road together all maybe in different
exactly.
places, but we're on the road together of transformation. So it's amazing to do that with you guys. So thank you very much. Appreciate y'all.
All
We'll
right. And just a quick word, if any of you are in the Cork area and you like these ideas, you want some support with creating a year of life you love in 2025, I do have a vision workshop coming up, and all the details will be in the links below, and
perfect.
the information about this session. So I'd love to see you guys if any of you
Awesome.
can make it, and would love to be there. I'd love to have you.
Highly recommended. Highly recommended. I would totally, if I was there, I'd be there.
Yay.
Okay. Thanks, guys. We'll see you later.